Robots, they're everywhere. Well, at least here in Santa Clara at the ROBOBusiness Conference with a robot expert. He writes a lot about it. Steve, you moderated a panel a little bit earlier today, one of the keynote panels, I believe. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your impressions of that panel, some of the folks that were on it?
Yeah, sure. So it was DHL, GE, NASA, and Intel, and it's really some of the leading companies that are pushing innovation along in robotics and artificial intelligence. And to me, some of the main takeaways were the impact that deep learning and machine learning are going to have on all sorts of different robotics that you can see here at the show, especially with vision. Vision is really one of the keys, probably the key to robotics working. They have to know where they are. They have to be able to sense their environment, look out for obstacles. They have to be able to, there's a lot of work you'll see here today with mobile piece-picking robots, which are robots that have to identify objects on a shelf and then put it in a container. And really the key to all these things working properly is they need to see what they're doing. So I think to me, the impact that deep learning and machine learning will have on that technology is really something that I took away from the panel this morning.
Well, and what's really neat about this is it's not like it happened overnight. What is it, AGV or something? I mean, people have been laying down magnetic strips in factories for a long time, so there's some base of experience to the...
Sure, so some of the robots you'll see here, they call them, there's different terminologies for them, but Fetch Robotics, for example, they call theirs AMRs, autonomous mobile robots, and really the difference is there's no magnetic strip anymore. All these things, they're sensing in real time their environments, and they're able to adapt to their environments in real time. So yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for 13 years. We've been here, and so mobile robots aren't necessarily a new technology, but I think the world is ready for them now. I think there's a lot of business use cases that make a lot of sense now. I think people who are running businesses understand why they need mobile robots and other robotics technologies, and that's what we're trying to show at ROBOBusiness.
Well, and it's been repeated time and time again at this conference already. It's not really about jobs, it's about tasks.
Yeah, I think people who are saying, robots are stealing jobs, maybe they're not involved with it as much, and they go into it with their own preconceived notion. So a lot of the folks you'll see here, they're in the manufacturing industry, they're in the logistics industry, and there's so many stories of constant turnover at some of these facilities where I spoke with one gentleman who was telling me a story about a factory in Mexico. So this factory was well established, it had been there for a long time. A new factory opened up maybe a couple miles down the road, and the executives running that new facility went to the established facility, offered their employees 25 cents, 50 cents more an hour, and the next day that entire workforce was gone. So in order and that might be an extreme story, but the point of it is there's a lot of turnover in a lot of these in a lot of these jobs. They don't pay well, they're not glamorous. So in order for these businesses to remain competitive and frankly stay open, they need to figure out a solution, and robotics is helping them figure out that problem or solve that problem.
And from a human perspective, you're taking away a lot of the drudgery too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to do that job for sure. It's an interesting challenge. We did a case study yesterday with a company called RK Logistics. They run a facility in Livermore, California, and they were tasked from their main client with increasing productivity by, I think, 40%. And a lot of the human employees there heard the word robot, and they got nervous about their job, the long-term prospects for their job. And Cindy Traver, who's their director of operations, she said yesterday that they haven't lost one employee as a result of the automation. So a term that you'll hear a lot is augmentation. They're augmenting that facility's operation. So they're putting the humans in different spots that robots can't do and probably might never be able to accomplish that task. So for example, the mobile robots that they use, she says those robots travel 2 million miles a week, just materials handling, just shuttling things back and forth from one end of the warehouse to the next. So the humans have been shifted to another part of the operation.
Well, and one of the things I heard, it's interesting along that idea of travel, just this whole human interaction with the robots and how people kind of sometimes realize, oh, well, they don't have to move for me. And they literally would stand in the middle of the factory floor and the robot would kind of just stop. So there's I think an interesting dimension here of that whole human-robot-machine interaction.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of them. Again, is it the job angle? It's not a familiar, it's a new piece of electronics. People are in this country are afraid of change naturally. So one of the things that a lot of companies do is they try to figure out a fun way to integrate and introduce these technologies to their employees. So back to the RK Logistics example, is they have, I think it's every 6 months, or it might be more frequent than that, is they name the robots. They come up with different names for them. But really what happens is these robots get into these facilities. They're taking a really laborious job off the hands of these folks. And at the end of the day, that's a benefit to everybody. And the robots are then seen as an ally,
Well, now, I would imagine the work that's being done in the factory and in these kind of institutional settings, whether it be a pharmacy or whether it be a factory, can inform what happens in the public rights of way as you get to autonomous vehicles and so forth. Do you see any crossover there, any learnings from what is happening in the private to the public realm at some point? I'm thinking like this human interaction, the whole idea of humans gaming the autonomous vehicle. They'll jump in front of it because they know that the car has to stop because the human has primacy.
Sure, I think so. I mean, self-driving cars are much more dangerous, right? There's obviously the amount of people that could potentially be hurt is, in my opinion, a lot more than you would see at a warehouse facility or something like that. So they have to be very careful with how they go about rolling out self-driving cars. There's a gentleman from Toyota Research Institute. His name's Gil Pratt. He's really in charge of developing Toyota's autonomous vehicle plan. And he says that even one accident, when these things are on the public roads and become sort of normalized, even one fatal accident will be a really bad PR situation for self-driving cars. So they're still struggling to figure out how safe do we need to make these things, because humans are actually pretty good drivers, but how will humans accept accidents that the self-driving cars make? So they actually have to make the self-driving cars probably a lot safer than a human driver.
That makes sense, but it seems like the work that's being done here on the show floor will help the people who are doing those autonomous cars at some level.
I think so. I mean, it's there's a lot of talented folks here. The industry is booming. It's a great place to network and take away new ideas. So we'll see. We'll wait and see. I think self-driving cars are still a really long way out. I think some of the projections that you hear about them being here in 2020, it's not true. It's just the companies trying to promote themselves and what they're spending billions of dollars on. They're trying to justify it. I think you'll see self-driving cars start is in really sort of controlled environments. I think there's a Heathrow Airport in London, I think, might be testing a self-driving shuttle, but it's on a fixed path. It's going the same route, however many times a day. It's not, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. The traffic is crazy. The streets aren't set up properly. It's a mess. So I think situations like that will be a lot more difficult for self-driving cars to navigate.
Well, just like we see here, there'll be different use cases, and it'll just kind of happen over time, probably.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some of the use cases you see here are unbelievable, and it's it's a credit to the talented folks who are here, who have been with us for 13 years. There's some really talented universities who are here, and Silicon Valley is really one of the hubs of robotics in the world, right? So you can argue about, is it better than Boston? Boston has MIT. Silicon Valley has Stanford and UC Berkeley. So that's really where a lot of the innovation happens.
Excellent. Well, Steve, it's great meeting you, and thank you for your time.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being here.